Yes, what's going on, peeps, man? We're back in the building. Good morning to everybody. Hope everyone is doing blessed. Guys, as always, make sure you smash a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, this morning, we're taking a look at both Arsenal and Nottingham Forest. And to be fair, included in the deals are obviously Chelsea and Newcastle as well. So, four teams taking a look at players who could potentially be going to either one of those four clubs. Now, let's take a look at so Anthony Elanga. So, according to Fabrizio, more on Newcastle and Elanga. Club are optimistic to get final green light from Nottingham Forest after £55 million bid was revealed tonight. And that was obviously last night. Personal terms also close to being agreed, as Newcastle want to get it done as soon as possible. So, Anthony Elanga going to Newcastle from Nottingham Forest, obviously helped Nottingham Forest to the position that they finished last season, I believe finishing in Europe. I'm sure they just about got into the Conference League. I'm going to say, apologies if I am wrong. Good player, like decent player, decent player. I'm not gonna sit here and try and blow smoke up his ass. Pause. But yeah, I think he's a decent player, and I think especially coming to a team like Newcastle, with the kind of depth that they don't have within their team, I think it makes sense. Someone like Alanga, going there. He can play left, he can play right, he can play through the middle. So again, it gives them that option. I don't know what the situation is or was with Almiron. I don't even know if he's even still there. I haven't seen him for such a long time. But obviously, they've had Jacob Murphy on the right hand side and obviously Anthony Gordon on that left hand side. But outside of that, I mean, they are really struggling when we're talking about wingers. I know they've got Harvey Barnes, who I think is a decent player as well. But does he always stay fit? Is he always reliable? And I think someone like Elanga, with the pace that he's got in that team, especially on that right hand side, it would be interesting to kind of see what he could bring. Now, for Nottingham Forest, obviously got himself 11 assists in the Premier League alone, 12 in all competitions with 6 goals. So, yeah, man, he's really improving as a player since leaving, Manchester United. And I think he's looking at himself as being someone who's on this kind of upward trajectory, so to speak, in terms of where he's kind of at now, in a general sense. So yeah, 100%, man. I think it'll be a good signing. Obviously, it's 55 million. Whether that's the final deal that can be agreed, obviously we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I think it's a pretty decent deal. From a Newcastle standard, anyway. But obviously, we'll wait and we shall obviously see. Well, obviously, it makes sense to take a look at how he does compare, to someone like a Jacob Murphy, because I do believe that's the side that he will probably realistically play on. I don't feel like he'd play on that left hand side, not with Anthony Gordon, being there. So I was just thought, let's take a look, quickly at some of the stats and stuff like that. Murphy's on the right, Alanga is on the left. I mean, looking at shots, you can see 1.4. He's excluding blocks. His accuracy is 64%, whereas Jacob Murphy is only 48%. So fair enough in that regards. Murphy edges him per 90 on the goals. Left foot, right foot. Yeah, conversion rate 16% for Alanga, 25%. For Jacob Murphy. So okay, okay. Uh, Elanga is creating 1.8 chances per game, whereas Jacob Murphy's only doing 1.6 per 90 passes attempted. Jacob Murphy's more. His passing accuracy is just a little bit less, but he is attempting more passes, so maybe it kind of balances itself out. Long pass accuracy, you can see Elanga is obviously winning in that regard. Through balls, they're both the same. Forward passes. Now you can see it's almost more, it's almost double what Elanga is actually doing. 8.8, for Jacob Murphy, 4.5 for Elanga. Backwards passes, sideways passes. So he's doing more passes. You can see that there. Take-ons over run, 0.3 to 0.2. As I mentioned before, Elanga is on the left, Jacob Murphy on the right. Tackles made per 90. So you can see Elanga is less than one, whereas Jacob Murphy is just over one tackle made per 90 minutes. His take-ons completed, again, 0.9 for Elanga, 1.4 for Jacob Murphy. That's pretty decent. Success, 39 to 53%. Aerial duels and duels in general, ground duels and aerial duels, it looks like Elanga is actually better just in some of these anyway, in regards to the duels in itself. Touches, not really bothered. Ball recoveries, Jacob Murphy's recovering more. Possession lost, quite relatively close. Touches in opposition box and times they have been tackled per 90 minutes. He gets tackled 3 times per 90 minutes, whereas Jacob Murphy is just under 3. So yeah, pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Obviously, again, listen, it's one of those kind of things, right? Like it just kind of depends in what kind of capacity someone like an Elanga would be coming in. Like I said, Jacob Murphy is obviously the obvious one, that we kind of look at when I think about, is this someone who could potentially play? Really, when I'm looking at the stats and stuff like that, I'm like, they are kind of relatively even. Do you know what I mean? They're not like far off each other in terms of, you know, how far I thought they would actually be. But again, everything is quite contextual. You do have to then think, okay, one plays for Nottingham Forest, one plays for, for Newcastle. Yeah, so those kind of things will obviously come into play. But even still, it's not really that far off, if I'm being 100%, honest with you. But let's take a look at him against Harvey Barnes. So this is obviously him against Harvey Barnes. Like I said, I just wanted to look at their attackers in a general sense, because obviously this is an area that they need depth in. We've all said it a million times. They did well with Jacob Murphy last season, and I thought he was an underrated signing. I've liked Harvey Barnes. Obviously, when he was at Leicester, I thought he was a decent player. But as I said, just fitness and stuff like that. Sometimes that's where the question mark comes into play when we are talking about someone like Harvey Barnes. But listen, Barnes on the left, Elanga is on the right this time. Shots on target, 1 to does pretty well in terms of like the goals and stuff like that. Conversion rate 22%, obviously to Elanga's 16%. Open play passes 27. Passes attempted, so he attempts more passes. Passing accuracy is better. Crossing accuracy 29% to Elanga's 23%. Through balls 0.3, 0.2. Forward passes, backwards, sideways. Take-ons. Take-ons completed 1.3 to, again, obviously Elanga is under 1. So his success is 42 to 39. Aerial duels, again, Elanga seems to be pretty strong, other than ground duels contested. But outside of that, everything else does seem to be pretty strong when we're talking about the defensive side of things. So yeah, that's pretty decent. That's pretty decent. That might be something that Eddie Howe obviously then looks at, when he's then deciding, where this guy's going to play and if he's going to play over certain players. Again, it will come down to fitness and things, like that. Touches in opposition box. I mean, 7 times for Harvey Barnes, only 4.4 for Elanga. Again, that could just be contextual. I don't want to take anything away from Elanga. It could just be obviously playing for Nottingham Forest, in terms of their style of play, their tactics, and what that they're trying to do. But again, it's not really far off in most of these kind of metrics, if I'm being totally honest with you guys. If I just scroll here, yeah, it's not far off in most of these. So again, he'd be coming in. Obviously, like I said, I feel when I watch or when I see someone, like Anthony Elanga, I look at him and I think to myself, okay, here's a player who he does look like, he's on this kind of trajectory now. And obviously from what I see, I don't know if he's had too many injuries. Again, apologies if he has, but he doesn't look like a player that's going to get injured quite a lot. So again, these are all things that Nottingham Forest, that Newcastle obviously need. Nottingham Forest, I mean, 55 million, can you really go wrong with that? I don't even know how much they spent on Elanga, but I definitely know it wasn't 55 million. So yeah, this might represent a really good deal in Nottingham Forest's favor, and they can go out there and sign someone, someone else who they feel, might be totally ready, to be honest with you. But let's take a look now at Noni Mad. So in regards to the news to Madueke, now again, Fabrizio, understand Arsenal had new round of talks for Noni Madueke as the player could be open to the move. Nothing has obviously advanced yet in terms of club to club approach or direct negotiations, but Arsenal maintain contacts. I find that very, very interesting. Obviously, we know, just like Newcastle, Arsenal need depth in their forward areas. They are really just like Newcastle, they are lacking heavily, in my personal opinion. I think that almost might be the difference between them having a really good season and having a somewhat, decent season or okay kind of season, is because when we get later on into the season, players, start, being, you know, just not as fit as they were at the beginning of the season. When we're looking at the fact that I've seen Kieran Tierney come on, play like left wing back, whatever it is, down that left-hand side, I'm like, yeah, that's when you know we're starting to get peak, kind of thing. Now, Madueke is someone who can play, he plays right wing. So that's obviously Saka's position, right? But he can play left wing. I've seen him play there, as well. This is obviously his heat map from last season. So obviously, as you can see here, predominantly on that right hand side, but he can play on the left hand side. So is it a case of getting him in and he's a versatile winger, someone that you can say, listen, we need you to do a job on the right, but we may need you to do a job on the left in another game. Maybe he starts on that left hand side with Bukayo Saka, potentially playing on that right hand side, kind of thing. So listen, it's an interesting one. It is. I know Arsenal fans, I know from what I've seen anyway, most of them are not really feeling the kind of signing. And I kind of get it. I mean, do you know what I mean? I'm not even sitting here saying, yeah, I don't see it. They want an elite left winger, and then potentially keep a Martinelli. And then obviously you've got Trossard, you can sell him, for example, and then obviously get themselves in a striker and then boom, bam, bim. It will kind of work in Arsenal fans' eyes. But maybe Mikel Arteta's got a plan, and who knows? Obviously, I don't know what the fee for someone like a Madueke would even be. I don't know how much Chelsea even got him for last season. 44 games, 11 goals, and 5 assists. So yeah, listen, for a squad rotation player, I think he's a decent player. Like I genuinely believe, yeah, he'd be a decent player if you're just talking about we need someone to be able to come in and rotate and things like that. But of course, if you're looking at someone like him and you're like, hey, I need you to, kind of, start majority of games, then okay, where does he then play? Well, his best position is obviously on the right hand side. Obviously, he's left footed, so that's Bukayo Saka's position, kind of thing. So if that's Bukayo Saka's position, then he has to go on the left. Is he that good on the left? He can play there. Whether he's good or not, obviously that remains, to be seen. But let's take a look at how he kind of compares to Saka, and then we can maybe, maybe just see, this could be a good rotation play because they can't keep playing Saka the way that they're playing Saka. Because unfortunately, whether it's true or not, Saka is not like a Mo Salah or one of those kind of players where they're very durable, never get injured, never come off because of injury, kind of thing. Like they can stay fit for an entire season. He's not there yet. Give him time. He's still young. Then he could potentially get there. At this moment, he's been playing so much football for Arsenal since he made his debut. I think it was under Freddie Ljungberg, in that kind of left wing back position. Yeah, like it's too much in my personal opinion. But ultimately, on the flip side of that, listen, the top players, they play football all the time, ultimately. So there is that side of things. But obviously, I know Arsenal fans would like Saka to get a little bit of a respite, before, burning him out, completely. But let's take a look, obviously, at the stats anyway. Okay, so here it is. Madueke on the left, Bukayo Saka on the right. I felt it was right to put them in those positions. All right, let's look here. What are we looking at? Shots on target. So Madueke is having more shots on target. Bearing in mind, obviously, Saka was injured last season as well. So, yeah, just take that into context when you guys are thinking about this. But the distance isn't that much. 1.5 to 1.2. Goals the same, 0.4 per 90. Conversion rate, Saka is only 14%, whereas Madueke is 12. So, again, not far off. Open play crosses, 26 to 30. Chances created, 1.4. Now, that is okay. Saka's creating double the amount of chances. Now, obviously, we're talking about a Chelsea team that has Cole Palmer in there. So ultimately, he's going to probably take the bulk of these kind of statistics anyway. But it is interesting. It is, double that of Madueke. Passes attempted, relatively close. Accuracy, close. Long pass accuracy, 65 to 41. Crosses attempted. Jesus Christ. Bukayo Saka is attempting 6.1 crosses per game. Again, when I look at that, when I see the gap is so big, I'm like, right, it must be the way the team obviously plays. It must be. Do you know what I mean? Because, yeah, that's quite a big margin if I'm looking at that, 2.8. But again, the way Maresca plays, the way Arteta plays, they've got similar principles in certain aspects, but yeah, obviously it's different kind of football. Crossing actually 17 to 31 in Bukayo Saka's favour. Through balls, 0.3 to Saka. Forward passes, yeah, he's doing more of those. I would understand that, to be fair. Tackles made, 1.6 to 1.1. So Bukayo Saka's making more. Take-ons, he's just about beating him there. Take-on success is 49 to 52. So again, relatively close. Aerial duels, kind of surprised by that. Thought Madueke would win more, but fair enough. Touches, ball recoveries, the same. Possession lost. Madueke is losing just that bit less, but again, Saka being kind of the star player in the team, that's kind of understandable. And times tackled, touches in opposition box 9.4 to 8.8, so that's pretty decent. And I do see Madueke as someone who does, like to get himself, in the box and stuff like that. So, yeah, okay, that in itself isn't too bad. When you're looking at it like that, you're like, okay, well, this is just going to be a player who's only going to come in just for Bukayo Saka, every now and again. And, maybe there's games where he starts games and Saka comes off the bench, to give him that 60-minute rest, 30-minute kind of game, because they might have an important game, Champions League, for example. So that in itself kind of makes sense. Oh yeah, I don't think that's too bad. Let's take a look at how he kind of compares, I think, to a Martinelli. I just want to see what it looks like, up against someone like him. So this is Madueke up against Martinelli. Madueke on the left, Martinelli on the right. So shots on target, he's putting in more. Away goals. Yeah, they're all the same. Left foot, right foot, understandable. Open play passes. Madueke is coming out on top. Passes attempted, completed, accuracy, long passes. Yeah, it's all better than Martinelli. Crosses attempted 2.8 to 3.6. Again, because he's losing out to the Arsenal wingers quite a bit. Yeah, it must be something about the way that Chelsea play and in regards to the way that Arsenal play as well. Through balls, forward passes. Yeah, I mean, technically, I mean, take-ons, tackles made, duels contested. I mean, he's beating Martinelli here. I'll tell you that much, boy. Yeah, and he beats him in everything else. It's not far for some of these, and again, obviously look at it, but he's beating him in a lot of touches in opposition box. Obviously, times tackled less, ball recoveries more, touches. He's having a lot more ground rule success. Obviously, like I said, he's pretty decent at that. Take on success, 49% to the 35. Take-ons completed per game is 2 in comparison to the 1.3 from Martinelli. So yeah, that in itself is very, very interesting, people. Very, very interesting. So could Madueke obviously come now? Listen, Arsenal fans, we're going to close this out here, right? Arsenal fans, put your thinking caps on. Obviously, you've signed Norsgaard, you've signed Kepa, so you've got like depth. Goalkeeper, you got the depth. Even though I don't really rate Kepa that much, but you've got the depth there in the Premier League goalkeeper, Premier League proven, right? You've got Norsgaard as well coming into the midfield. Obviously, he's just going to be more of an understudy backup option to Zubimendi potentially. So now obviously you're looking at the wing areas, and then obviously I'm assuming you're then going to sort out your striker position, right? Would you be happy with Noni Madueke in that kind of role? Or do you think you should be going for someone else, like a better winger, shall we say? So let's just use Nico Williams as an example from Athletic Bilbao. So let's say you get him in to go play on that left-hand side. Then you keep Martinelli. And then you've got Trossard you can then obviously sell. I've then seen a few things about Martinelli in a bid from Saudi. All these kind of things start coming into play when I'm starting to think about it. So yeah, like I said, Arsenal summer still kind of working itself out. In regards to Newcastle, as I said before, again, just like Arsenal, need to sort out that depth in the team. So, of course, they're going to need to make sure that they can get in players like an Elanga, and then obviously then be able to, push on and push forward. From there, of course, we still don't know what's going on with the whole Isak situation, staying, going. Are they spending this money because this is how much they can spend without selling someone like an Isak at this moment in time? All questions. We'll just have to, of course, wait and see. Let me know Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal, the other one. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, people, and then I will catch you guys soon.